So there's also a bit of grace in God's discipline, because he is going to protect his children, and ultimately, as we find out later, he's going to save them through the coming of Jesus. And he's going to remove them from the Holy of Holies, or they'll just be destroyed there by eating the wrong tree, the tree of life, which will sort of freeze them in this condition of permanent separation from God. Verse 20, the man called his wife's name Eve because she was the mother of all the living. Now, it sounds like the Hebrew word for the life giver, but it's highlighted by Moses in the text, because the naming of Adam, calling her Eve, not just woman before, remember that was her name, now she's Eve, that's actually starting to be an act of faith, in that she's going to live and the mother of living, because the penalty of having sinned was death. You can't miss that in the text. The Lord God made for Adam and his wife garments of skin and clothed them. So fig leaves are not enough. There has to be clothes. And it's clothes that are made by the killing of an animal. This is foreshadowing what's going to happen in the law with all the sacrifices of the animals. We're not there yet. At this point, mankind were commanded by God to be vegetarians. That won't change until the flood, when he makes them omnivores at that point and puts the fear of man into animals. But it is foreshadowing that through blood, man's sin is going to have to be cleansed, or in this case, cloaked. The sad part is the death of thousands and tens of thousands and millions of animals will not be enough to solve the problem. It's going to take the death of one perfect sacrifice, Jesus. But it's foreshadowed here in how God is covering them by having had to kill something else. Something dies so that they might live or be clothed. Verse 22, and the Lord God said, behold, the man has become like one of us in knowing good from evil. The one of us there could be a not so veiled reference to the Trinity, but I don't think so. He's probably talking to this divine council, these heavenly beings, these angels that he has created. Could also be a royal we, like, aren't we special? Or he's become like us. But I think it's probably the best solution there is he's talking to the other heavenly beings. Don't forget, there's a war that takes place. You can't miss that war. And especially as we go through the prequel, it's one of the reasons why I recorded this prequel and not just sent you to the internet for a study on Genesis. Have to restore the concept that there's a real war, a real spiritual battle, and people really die. And there really are angels and demons, and I'm getting ahead of myself. But I think that God is talking to those heavenly beings, to those angels who are at war with the demons. Verse 22 still, now lest he reach out his hand and take also of the tree of life and live forever. That's the problem. Somehow, by eating the tree of life, they would become morally frozen or physically frozen in this condition. I don't know what the tree of life is, but maybe when you eat it, it stops all of the pain and sickness and sorrow. And who wouldn't eat that? I mean, we spend 90% of our medical expenses in the last year of our life to prolong life. Who wouldn't be eating at that tree or the garden or the fountain of youth or whatever? And we'd never pass from this world because we're citizens of the next. It's only that recreation that permanently undoes what Adam and Eve did in the garden. So God guards the way to the tree of life. Therefore, verse 23, the Lord God sent him out from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he was taken. That's interesting is that now they leave the Holy of Holies, Garden of Eden. They're in a planet that is wild, it's chaotic, and they have to be gardeners. If they hadn't sinned, that was their job. They would have extended the Garden of Eden throughout the entire world. Now they have to do it, but it's cursed because of them. Nonetheless, it's God's grace to boot them out of the garden so they don't get frozen in that fallen condition. Verse 24, he drove out the man, and at the east of the Garden of Eden, he placed the cherubim. Now, cherubim is a type of angel, a very powerful angel. Lucifer is a cherub, Michael the archangel is a cherub, Gabriel is a cherub. Those three we know by name. There are extra biblical names and references to these particular kinds of angels. Big Old Testament classifications of angels include cherubim and seraphim. Seraphim are flames of fire that guard the way to God's holiness, They have 6 wings, we're told by Isaiah, who sees them in Isaiah 6. Again, I'm ahead of the story. But don't miss the fact that there's a spiritual battle. It can't be allegorized away. We can't say this is mythology. This is God telling us, and however he's doing it, that there's a real war and real beings. So this, he placed the cherubim. Cherubim, by the way, is plural. The im at the end of some of the Hebrew nouns means it's plural. So he placed these cherubs and a flaming sword that turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. And so with that, God is going to seal Adam and Eve's ability to destroy themselves forever. That's an act of grace. So Genesis 3 opens up with this crafty serpent, continues with the temptation and the fall of man, continues with God's confrontation of that and his discipline in the belly judgments, but ends chapter 3 with God's grace, preventing Adam and Eve from permanently keeping us in this fallen state. But the story continues now, because Adam named Eve, gave her the name Eve, the life bearer, that even in the midst of death, you're going to see that God is going to allow life. He's a good God.